Good morning, everybody, and thank you very, very much. It's really an honor to be here. I'm now the ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I've been in Congress for 25 years, and I think it was when I was in Congress for my second or third year, a group of us got together and formed the India Caucus, and I was an original member of that caucus, and I've been a proud member for all these years I've been in Congress. I've always felt that the United States and India had so much in common, with India, of course, being the world's largest democracy and the United States being the world's oldest democracy. And it always made sense to me that the outlook of the U.S. and India has always been very, very similar. And I have always been a strong supporter of closer U.S.-India ties. I'm glad we seem to be moving in that direction. In many ways, we're already there. But of course, there's always things to keep doing. So I'm very, very honored to be here. I want to begin by thanking the U.S.-India Political Action Committee and Sanjay for hosting today's event and for all the work that you've done over the past 10 years to increase Indian-American participation in the American political process. You know, at a time when this Congress, Senate are debating immigration issues, it always kind of irks me a bit when people talk about immigrants as if somehow or other they're coming to this country and the question is, what are they going to do? Is it bad? Is it good? Is it a little bit in between? So on and so forth. And I always like to remind people that unless you are an American Indian or a descendant of an American Indian, all of us are actually immigrants, or the sons and daughters and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of immigrants. My own grandparents came to this country 100 years ago from Eastern Europe, seeking the same things that so many people have sought from this good country. And I think one only has to look at the Indian American community and the wonderful, not only strides that it's made, but the fact that, you know, I have in my district a special school in New York City called the Bronx High School of Science. It's really world renowned. It's a public school. A lot of people go there, very top tests, admission tests to go there. When you take a look at the student body today, there's a huge percentage of Indian American students that have made this test a competitive test. I have to tell you, it's one of the hardest tests to pass. And so again, it's a testimony, a testament to the American Indian community, Indian American community, and a testament to the fact that we're all children of immigrants. I think that's very, very important. So I want to recognize a few people. Some I'm not here yet, but Rajnath, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Singh, the president, and former Indian Foreign Secretary, Kanwal Siva, former head of India's Intelligence Bureau, Ajit Doval, and Amrullah Saleh, the former head of Afghanistan's National Security. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the United States Congress. You know, there's a transformation that's occurred, as I said before, of U.S.-Indian relations. When we established the India Caucus, there were more irritants than areas of agreement. That's not the case now. What was once of our big stumbling blocks, the nuclear issue, has been transformed into one of our relationship's biggest successes and a central pillar of the U.S.-India strategic partnership. Trade in goods between our two countries has increased from a modest $5.6 billion, that's not so modest, but it's modest, for two big countries, in 1990 to $62.9 billion in 2012. That's just phenomenal. More than 1,000% growth in the span of 22 years. And it's unthinkable 20 years ago. Now India does more defense exercises with the United States than with any other country in the world. And our people-to-people ties are second to none. And you are all very important, obviously, part of those people-to-people ties. Engagement between our two countries is broader than it has ever been, from homeland security and counterterrorism to clean energy and human rights. India has become an important economic, political, and security partner, including in Afghanistan. And let me just say, both India and the United States have suffered terrorist attacks, and both India and the United States understand what the scourge of terrorism is. And I had the great honor back in 1997 of being in the parliament in Delhi at the exact 50th anniversary of independence for India at midnight. They had a gun, and the clock reached midnight. We were all sitting in Parliament, and that was the 50th anniversary at that time of India's independence, and it was an honor for me to be there. As you know, 2013, 2014 marks a transformative point for U.S. involvement in Afghanistan. Just last month, Afghan security forces assumed responsibility for security nationwide, and this handover of responsibility was a significant milestone for the war and makes a clear turning point for American and ISAF forces who will now move into a supporting role as 2014 draws down. I know much has been said about U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, but I want to reassure you that this is not the end of U.S. engagement in Afghanistan or the region. And that's why the Obama administration, in May of 2012, completed negotiations on a strategic partnership with Afghanistan that outlines the course of our engagement in Afghanistan beyond 2014 in areas such as regional security, democracy and governance, and economic and social development. And through this agreement, the U.S. formalized an enduring partnership with Afghanistan that strengthens Afghan sovereignty, stability, and prosperity, and that contributes to our shared goal, and I said this before, of defeating al-Qaeda and its extremist affiliates. At the same time, we know that conflict in Afghanistan will not come to an end via a decisive military victory. While the fighting continues, the pursuit of stability there must involve negotiation as well. There are those, and I'm one of them, who question whether the Taliban had a sincere desire to talk and work with the Afghan government. Ultimately, however, I recognize that there must be a negotiated political reconciliation for stability to take hold. And in my opinion, it should be a reconciliation that not only satisfies the government in Kabul and the Taliban, but one that is acceptable to all Afghans. It's important that we, Afghanistan's neighbors, and the international community support this process. Now, as part of the reconciliation process, it's important that the U.S. enforce the established red lines with the Taliban before engaging in a full-fledged dialogue. We must protect the gains we've made on counterterrorism, women's rights, and counter-narcotics over the past decade. Naturally, the security transition and reconciliation process garners much of the media spotlight, but the political transition will be a key component to Afghanistan's stability past 2014. I'm encouraged by some of the steps occurring in Kabul to ensure that next year's presidential election is not just acceptable, but meets the necessary standard for electoral credibility. I welcome President Karzai signing the law governing the Election Commission and another outlining how the vote will be held. When the election is completed and the new president replaces Mr. Karzai, it will be the first time that the Afghanistan people have had a peaceful transfer of power. And it will send a much-needed signal about the sustainability of Afghan democracy. But none of this can happen without continued support from Afghanistan's neighbors. And this is where we look to India to play an important role. In the aftermath of the U.S. intervention in 2001, some in the U.S. viewed the Indian presence in Afghanistan as an irritant that complicated efforts to enhance stability, primarily due to the concerns it generated in Pakistan. A decade later, there's a consensus that India is, and will be, a key partner in bringing and maintaining stability in Afghanistan. India has provided more than $2 billion in developmental assistance to Afghanistan since 2002. India is, by a considerable margin, the largest regional donor and the sixth largest bilateral donor to Afghan reconstruction. Indian assistance has contributed to Afghanistan's infrastructure, including highways and hospitals, and rural electricity projects. It is also helping the Afghan government rebuild its police force, judiciary services as well. And a consortium of Indian companies has begun participating in Afghanistan's extractive industry in what I hope can be a model for others on how to best help Afghanistan benefit from its natural resource wealth while avoiding the resource curse that has plagued many developing countries. Regrettably, India's positive efforts in Afghanistan will generate intense suspicion in Pakistan, in Islamabad, where fears remain that India is trying to encircle its neighbor. I understand the long and difficult history between India and Pakistan, but I think these views are outdated, and I hope they soon become outdated in Pakistan as well. And again, when I was in India's parliament in 1997, at that 50th anniversary, we contrasted the difference that's happened, the history between India and Pakistan during the course of independence for both countries in 1947. The difference, whereas Pakistan has had many different military coups, India has had a stable democratic government. For far too long, the international community has turned a blind eye to Pakistani attempts to balance its fear of India by supporting the Taliban insurgency in Afghanistan. After decades of supporting this approach, some argue that Pakistan, now facing an insurgency on its own territory, has made a strategic shift. Greater instability in Afghanistan, the theory goes, will only mean greater instability in Pakistan after NATO troops withdraw from Afghanistan in 2014. If this shift is real, then it could have major implications for stability in Afghanistan past 2014. But only time will tell if Pakistan is ready to change course. I hope they are. I hope they will. I think the United States should support them. We have an enormous stake in the region, and we need friendly relations with all countries. So ultimately, no transition in Afghanistan, military or political, will be successful unless those forces seeking to destabilize Afghanistan play a constructive role in allowing Afghans to determine the future of Afghanistan for themselves. Again, I very much welcome the close relationship between the U.S. and India. I'm working every day to make that relationship closer, and I think that our two great countries have so much in common. You know, I often look at relations between countries as almost like a family. If you're married, you know that some days you don't want to even talk to your spouse, and some days you do. Same thing with your kids. But you know what? You're all one family, and you realize that it is important that what binds you and the love of each other is so much greater than what divides you. I look at India and the United States as a family. I think there's much, much more in common than the things and the irritants that may disrupt some of the things. So I will continue to be an active member of the India Caucus, continue to work very closely with my friends, and on the Foreign Affairs Committee, I can assure you there is bipartisan support for the U.S.-India relationship, and as I mentioned in my remarks, the United States is very grateful for the positive and constructive role that India has played in Afghanistan. So thank you very, very much. Have a great conference.